Can design ever trump specifications in the Indian market? Well, that's a question that the OnePlus X has tried to take head on this time. Hi, I'm Prasid Banerjee for Digit.in, and we are talking about the OnePlus X today. We have the Onyx version with us, which has glass on both sides. There's also the ceramic version, which you would have heard of, but that's a limited edition model, so I'm going to leave it for some time later. I'm going to talk at length about the design on this phone because that's what OnePlus is trying to sell this phone on, but it does have some other really good things about it. But first, the design. It's a chunk of glass, as you can see. It's got glass on the back, it's got glass on the front and metal on the side. So overall, if you ask me, it's a really compact phone. It's 6.9 mm thick and weighs only 138 grams, so it's pretty light, feels sturdy enough. But I'm using the word sturdy very loosely here because it has glass on both sides, which means that there's more to break. So that's something we need to think about here, you know. With glass on both sides, while that is a good thing about the OnePlus X because it makes the phone look really good, it makes it feel like a premium phone, especially when you add this metal lining on the side. There's this etched metal on the side which feels really premium. And it's something we're not really used to in the sub 20k price segment, because you do get things like this here, but there usually some kind of corners are cut. But if you talk about the OnePlus X's design, there's really no corner that has been cut. But why is the glass a con also for the phone? One, because it becomes somewhat of a fingerprint magnet. To be honest, when I first saw this phone at launch, it was much more fingerprint sensitive than it is right now, and that could be because of a lot of reasons. It could be my fingers at the time, it could be that I was sweating more, it could be a lot of things, but it is still a fingerprint magnet. Another thing is that with glass on both sides, there's just more to break. I mean, you can, if your phone can fall like this, it can break. Your phone can fall like this, it can break. Of course, it's Gorilla Glass, it is strong, but you know, there are only so many falls that glass can take. And the third thing that I really don't like is the scratches that are here. I'm not sure whether you can see this in your in the video, but it's been about what, just over a week with this phone, and we have a lot of scratches on the back. This is something that many people may not like, and the problem here is that you could of course put a case on this phone, but putting a case would kill its design. So that kind of defeats the purpose of the whole phone. What I really like about this design is that it's compact. It's easy to use with one hand. I really have no problems using with one hand. I can type a message. You can do basically everything you want with one hand. It is a 5-inch phone done right. In fact, more than the weight and the thickness, what I would talk about here is that it's a 5-inch phone and its overall height is only 5.5 inches, which is the same as an iPhone 6s. So if you think about that, that is what a 5-inch phone should be like, right? Because the iPhone 6s is a 4.7-inch screen. So this is kind of like the design that we have been hoping for from phones today, especially in a market that is being overrun by phablets. So if you like a compact phone, you'll really like this design. Of course, you'll have to make do with the glass on the two sides of the phone. Moving on, I'll next talk about the display. It's got an AMOLED display and it is a pentile AMOLED, so it is not a true AMOLED. I'm not going to go into the depth of what exactly the difference could be, because to the naked eye, to most users, that difference will not be apparent. The main task of the display here is to display as the blackest blacks that a phone can ever have. You can see here that we have put a Hitman wallpaper on this, and the simple reason for that is because there's a lot of black in there. So the entire design is black, so the display is just supposed to fade into the bezels, and if I open the settings screen here, it will be very apparent to you what OnePlus is trying to do. And to be really honest, it does add to the overall experience, and the display does feel quite nice. The touch experience is not bad at all, the touch response is good, and this is not a cheap display at all, which is something that in the sub 20k segment you will find from many people. So the AMOLED is a conscious choice, and while for most people the AMOLED display is a choice just in terms of the display, in this phone it is actually more of a design choice than just for the display and for the colors to pop. The colors do pop, by the way. It is quite sharp. It's a 5-inch 1080p display, so it is pretty sharp, and to be honest, there's no QHD screen that will make you feel much different here. Of course, they could be oversaturated and you may feel a little different, but this is more or less the optimal that you can expect from a display. Next up, the performance of the phone. So that's where the first problem with this phone is. It's got a Snapdragon 801 SoC. So now the Snapdragon 801, if you ask me, has been one of the best processors that Qualcomm has made ever. But that said, it is still horribly old now, and the problem with such an old display is not that it won't deliver performance. The OnePlus X can do anything that you want in regular life. You want to do Instagram, you want to open Pocket and save some stuff, you want to open Facebook and you do your social networking. It'll all work fine. You want to click pictures with the camera, it'll all work fine. But the problem is that with an old SoC, your phone is not future proof. And if you're buying a smartphone today, that's very, very important, right? Your phone has to be future proof, which is something that OnePlus probably had to, in order to go with the design, and had to cut that corner. But it could be an expensive corner cut for it. But again, the Snapdragon 801 is an able processor, and it's not a bad processor at all. It's a quad core processor clocked at 2.2 gigahertz. So in your regular tasks, it will work well. If I talk about benchmarks, it will be pretty competitive, and it is more powerful than the Snapdragon 615, which is in phones like the Moto X Play today. So yes, it is more powerful than the Moto X Play, but if you talk about future proofing your device, for example, the Snapdragon 801 is not a 64-bit capable processor. That could be a problem for the OnePlus One here. So you could play a game on it and you could see, you won't see many differences. There are some lags, but most of these lags and stutter on this phone are because of Oxygen OS and how unstable Oxygen OS is. It's actually less because of the processor and more because of the OS itself. Moving on, you can also talk about the camera. This is the second good thing about this phone apart from its design. It's got a 13 megapixel camera on the back, and the regular slow motion and video, all those features are there. But the best part about this camera is that it's fast. It doesn't take a lot of time to focus. It doesn't take a lot of time to process images, which is something you really need from a camera today. But what it does not have here is the details. So your phone will not have the kind of details that you want, but it makes up for that with amazing color reproduction, and that's something that I have personally met many people who prefer that to, really sharp details, because how often do you really zoom into a picture to see it, right? To post to Facebook and everything, it's the colors and the vividness of the photo that you will really, really want. So I think if you talk about this camera, we compared it to the Meizu MX5 and to the Moto X Play, and I would say it's a better camera than the Meizu MX5, and it's almost as good as the Moto X Style. I'm not talking about the Play here, we compared it to the Style, and it's almost as good. It's not as good as that, and that's most likely because of the difference in megapixel count. The difference that makes is that the more pixels give the Moto X Play sharper images. That is what the difference here is. But for a phone that costs 17,000, this is a camera that I really, really like. Moving on to the battery, the phone has a 2525 mAh battery, and that I am not sure is a good choice, because thinking as a consumer, if you look at a phone that says I have a full HD display and I have a Snapdragon 801 processor and I do so much and I have a 2525 mAh battery, you automatically think that it will not have enough battery. So if you're talking about a full day's battery life, no, the OnePlus X cannot give you a full day's battery life. And to be honest, there's no real Android smartphone today that can give you like 24 hours worth of battery life. What the OnePlus X can do is it can give you 10 to 12 hours of battery life on regular usage. So I used it for a full day with about 6 calls, a lot of WhatsApp messages, a lot of social networking, and no gaming, by the way. So on that, it lasted me 10 to 12 hours. When I threw in some gaming, that went down to about 6 hours. I actually 6 to 7 hours, I would say. So to be honest, if you think about your regular day, within 10 to 12 hours you get to charge your phone at least once. So I'm not sure that's exactly a con, but yes, if you're talking plain in terms of numbers, then your phone should have a full day's battery life at least. We're still hoping Android can crack that, and of course we're still hoping Apple can someday crack that. So for now, its battery, I would say, is competitive, but it's not something we want from a phone. But it could work. My biggest problem with the OnePlus X here though is the 16 GB internal storage. It is expandable, of course, it is expandable to 128 GB, but you know what, Android phones need 32 GB of internal storage minimum. It's something that, it's not actually just Android phones, a smartphone needs 32 GB of internal storage minimum. It works more with Android because having an SD card actually affects your performance. It's something that many people do not understand, but if you're talking about music streaming and watching videos through apps like Hotstar and all, you have to realize that the minute you download stuff onto your SD card, your performance is affected, which is why many of these apps do not allow you to download stuff on the SD card. Also, imagine a scenario where your Facebook app, which while you download it, it may be less than 50 MB, but in about 2 months that app bloats up to about 300, 350 MB. So it doesn't sound like much, but the point is that most apps do this on Android, and that is something that you need, that is something that can affect your phone a lot. So if you're talking about future proofing your phone, then 16 GB of storage is really more of a marketing choice than a consumer choice, because 16 GB will never really suffice for a phone if you want to use it for say 3 years. But I know many people will say that who uses their phone for 3 years, but to be honest, you should use your phone for 3 years, because this is like a necessity, right? It's not really something that you need to change every day, right? At least I think so. So 16 GB of storage, yes, OnePlus, I'm not with you on that. I'm not really big on expandable storage, which is something I really like about the OnePlus One and OnePlus 2. You can just go and buy a 64 GB device, and that's a very good thing, because you won't need any more storage for the next 3 years. That's good for a phone, but 16 GB, I'm not really sure. So to sum it all up, what I would say is that the OnePlus X is like a complete departure from what OnePlus has done over the years. It's only the third phone ever, so it's a little early to say that, but it is a departure from the OnePlus One and OnePlus 2, right? It doesn't have as much storage, it doesn't really have that big display, it doesn't really have those groundbreaking specs that that the OnePlus One and OnePlus 2 brought at their price points. What it does have though is the design, which is something that the OnePlus One and OnePlus 2 do lack when you compare it to the OnePlus X. So yeah, it is aimed at a consumer who really cares about design, and to be honest, there are a lot of people, me included, who really do care about the design. And if you do care about your phone and how it looks, then this could be a very good option to go for. You will have to be careful about the glass, but it is still the best looking phone under 20K that you can buy today. If you want a good camera, that's an added bonus on this phone. You buy it for the design and the camera is the bonus. But yes, this is not a future-proof phone, so you will have to worry about that. And the Moto X Plate does have a really good camera, almost as good as the Moto X Style. So remember what I told you about the camera here? That's another con for this phone. So if you're asking me whether the OnePlus X is a good phone, yes, it is a good phone, and the invite system might bug you, but then OnePlus said that from next month this phone will be on open sale, which is a very good thing. So if 17,000 is all the budget that you have, then this phone could be a good option. You can save 3,000 rupees and not buy the Moto X Play. But if you have a budget of say 20,000, I would really recommend the Moto X Play over this, even though the processing power is somewhat lower in that, but I would still go for the Moto X Play simply because it's just a newer phone, and it's a well-built, very well-built phone that can possibly last you longer and break less.